Hi, and welcome to churchtherapy.com's first edition of Pastor Training. In these videos, I hope to give pastors some information that could be helpful to them for working with their parishioners in a way that is sensitive and helpful. I want to make sure that you understand that these principles that I'll be speaking about are in line with biblical principles. There's nothing that you need to compromise or shy away from about your biblical principles. However, there are some effective communication strategies that can help when you're meeting with a parishioner. And a lot of times pastors feel like they have to know what to say. They have to have the right advice to give. And that's a lot of pressure. It can make it very difficult for you to do your job without a lot of stress. The topic that we're going to cover today is motivational interviewing. And this is a concept that was developed by Bill Miller and Steve Rolnick. And they wrote a book called Motivational Interviewing. It's on its third edition. And there's some tips that they give that really can help pastors as well as counselors and doctors and other professionals who are working with people. So I'm just going to go through 10 things that you can do with your parishioners when you're meeting with them, specifically when they come to you with a problem and they need to do something to change. So the first thing that you need to understand about motivational interviewing is that it's about helping the person talk about change for themselves. You're not trying to convince them to do something. You don't have an agenda for the meeting. You're not planning to get them to move in a specific direction. You really want to know where they're at, and you want to help them talk about their own understanding of what change would look like for them. So it's a lot of listening. You should do at least 50% of the listening or more, so they should do most of the talking. That's a little gauge for yourself as you're meeting with people. Now, the first skill is to ask open-ended questions. These are questions that can't be answered with a yes or a no. And you want open-ended questions that are going to produce some kind of discussion about change. So things like, why did you bring up the problem that you came to me with today? Get them to talk about why this is important to them. Why is it that they want to change? And so you just listen at that point. You're not trying to give answers. It can be really hard or tempting in this moment to try to jump in with, okay, well, if you do that, then here's a plan of how you could do it. You really want to hold back and just hear from them. And when they're done, just wait. Pause is okay. And we're going to talk about that more in a little bit. Second thing you can do is explore the pros and cons with them. What are the pros of moving forward in certain areas of their life, and what are the cons? What are the things that are holding them back? Be careful here not to disagree with their pros and cons list or to try to talk them out of their cons. You're just listening and finding out where they're at. The third thing that you want to do is ask for details. So just really find out the whole story. Ask, how did they come to the decisions they've made? What's brought them to the places where they are in their lives? And then, again, like I mentioned before, pause. When they're done, allow for some silence. Silence is okay. You don't have to come up with the next thing to ask. And a good question to ask when they've finished explaining is, what else? Just after they've talked about it for a while, the details of, why they've come to the decisions that they've come to, what else? What are the other reasons? And just let them keep talking. The fourth thing that you can do is ask for concrete examples. And so you really want to look at how their decisions flesh out in a practical way. So, whatever problem they're describing, so how has that looked in your life on a day-to-day basis? Then you want to look back. Have them talk about things that have gone well in their lives in the past. Maybe they're struggling right now. Was there ever a time in your life when things were good? And what was that like? That's an example of looking back. You also want to look forward. So if you're struggling right now and you imagine your life in 6 months or a year from now, if you could kind of imagine a time when these problems didn't exist, what would be better? And so you want to find out from them, how would their life look if things were different? You can use extremes as well. What's the worst thing that could happen if your life stayed the way it is right now? And what's the best outcome if your life changed? So again, that's called evoking change talk. You're getting them to talk for themselves about what things would be different in their life if they would change. that when someone says something for themselves, they're actually a lot more likely to listen to it than if it's something that you said to them. So you really want to move away from the advice giving and move more into helping them talk about what it would look like for them to move forward. You can also use something called change rulers. It's really kind of a scale from, a lot of people think of a scale of 1 to 10, but actually you can use a scale from 0 to 10. And 0 would mean they don't want to change at all, so that's an option on the table. But if they were going to change, how ready are they for change right now? And so you can ask, on a scale of 0 to 10, how ready do you feel to make whatever change it is that you're talking about in life? Maybe it's reading my Bible more. I know I need to read my Bible more. Okay, on a scale from 0 to 10, how ready do you feel to change? And then if they say, well, maybe a 5, you can ask them, why didn't you pick a 2? When you ask that, they're going to start talking about the things that they're doing well. Well, I didn't pick a 2 because I do sometimes read my Bible and I do find it helpful. I'm just not very consistent. So then you can follow it up with, okay, so if you're at a 5 right now, what would it look like to go to a 6? And so you just one change notch forward, what would that look like? And so then they can talk about maybe a next step. Again, you're not giving them a next step. You're asking them to describe what they think the next step should be. You can also explore their goals and values. Sometimes we try to help someone with a goal that actually is our goal. And so we've set that agenda and we've said, okay, you need to read your Bible more. And maybe that's not the step that they feel they're at. Or maybe it's not the most important thing they need. It could be that they need more social connection. Maybe small groups on a Wednesday night or a midweek service, that kind of thing. So you want to find out from them, what are their goals? How do they want to move forward? And let them then guide that process. And then the last thing that you can do, of course, is come alongside. And that's really this process of walking out with a person. There are ups and downs of discipleship. Too often, like I said, pastors feel like they need to have the answers or guide someone, give them a direction and make them go in it. And really, walking with someone, letting them be the guide and you being an encouraging presence can really make all the difference. Again, the outcome is really the same. They're spiritually moving forward if that's what they want to do. Obviously, if they don't want to do that, there's very little that you can say that's going to convince them of that. We need to get out of this realm of convincing someone. Certainly in evangelism, these tools are also very helpful. You know, we've come from a place of trying to kind of bash people over the head with the Bible as an evangelism strategy. And I think we've come away from that because we know it doesn't work. In the same way, helping someone move forward in their relationship with God is not going to come from you telling them what to do or convincing them of it. It's going to come from them understanding themselves and really convincing themselves of change. I hope that helps, and I look forward to bringing you more content. Thank you for listening.